Okay. Go, 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 go.
Oh! Hello.
Hello.
Oh, you're all ready. That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
we're all ready. How are you doing?
I am very well, thank you.
Yeah,
It's nice
thank
to
you
hear
for
today.
accepting us, and yeah, we're very excited about this, especially when it comes to meeting an author, an important person like you. Thank you so much. The students are here. I think we're all ready, so yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think we're going to be together for maybe 15, 20 minutes, something like that.
Okay.
And so I thought what I would do is just tell you a little bit about myself and writing and how I got into it, that sort of thing.
We also have a few questions.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and then we can turn it over to questions. So I've been writing for my whole life, pretty much. I started in primary school when I was 6 or 7, something like that. I had a really lovely teacher who was very inspiring, and she would let us write whatever we wanted. We could. Sometimes when you get set writing, you get given a topic that you have to follow or a theme, but she didn't do that. She just said, write anything you want. And one day I wrote a story about a girl who traveled to another planet, and on that other planet were giant spiders, and the giant spiders would attach themselves to your face. Okay? I've been watching some really nasty films. This is true. And I handed this in, and you have to remember I was probably about 10 years old at the time. So I gave it to the teacher, and she read it. And she was, instead of saying, this story is horrible, which it was, she said, this is really fun, this is really entertaining. I think that you've got a talent for this. So because a teacher that I really liked gave me that encouragement, I decided that it was something that I wanted to continue with. I wanted to learn more about it. So I wrote loads of stories for myself. I found that it was a really good way of putting my emotional difficulties, sort of sorting those out in my head. I used writing a diary as a way to organise my thoughts, and I found it really useful in that way. And I've got a story here. I'll show you. Hopefully you can see that. Can you see that?
No.
Oh, I don't want you to read it, actually. It's very bad, but you can see it. This is a story that I wrote when I was about 11 years old, and it's the real story. That's why it's in plastic, because it's going all crinkly at the edges and it's turning yellow. But my mum and dad split up when I was about 10, which was really sad, and I was really upset by it. So I wrote this story to kind of put all of my emotions somewhere else, and I found it really helped me to handle things. And then a few years later, where is it? Here we go. About 25 years later, I wrote a novel about a boy whose parents split up when he's about 10 years old. And I remembered this story, and I went and I found it. I dug it out of my filing cabinet, and I recycled it, and I turned it into a novel. So this is based on a story that I wrote when I was 10 years old. So if you write, keep hold of anything that you write now, because you never know when it's going to be useful. So that's one area of inspiration. I use my own experiences, I use my own emotions, and I write stories based on that. But I also use lots of pictures to inspire stories. I'll show you my notebook. I carry a notebook everywhere with me because I find that often when I'm out walking the dog, I get a good idea, halfway around the park, and if I don't write it down straight away, I'll forget it. So I carry a notebook everywhere. And in the notebook at the moment, I'm also carrying around a whole load of pictures, these pictures here, because I collect pictures of people. I think that people are really interesting. Characters always come to me often through seeing them in a magazine or on the internet, something like that. So I don't know if you can see this picture here, but this is the hero of my most recent novel. I just found his picture on the internet. He's called Piotr, which is a Polish name. It's the same name as Peter. So I carry his picture around because I find it really useful to be able to look at it and think about what he would do in a situation or what he might say. And I found a whole load of other pictures. This is his best friend, Andrew, and slightly scary twins. I think they're a bit creepy looking, but they're in the story as well. And there's his other best friend, Minnie. So I used those children, photographs of those children, to put together the gang in this book, which is my most recent title. So those children investigate mysteries. And so there they are. There are the twins. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll come a little closer. There's one twin and there's the other. So they're not quite so scary in the illustrations as they are in real life. And I also find real places very inspiring. So Diamonds and Daggers, this book, is based on a street in London, and so I carry around a photograph of that street as well, because I can then use real shops and real buildings. There's a theatre on this street, which is really important in the story. And there's pictures of, I also find pictures of the characters' houses. So this isn't, there isn't really a boy called Piotr who lives in London investigating things, but I have tried to build up his life in my head. So I found a picture of a place where he might live, and I used that in my story. So trying to make my characters feel as real to me as possible is really important. Trying to daydream my way into their lives, and then using what I know about them to create a plot. So putting them in trouble, that's the way a plot is constructed, by the way. You have your character and you have them wanting to do something, but then you throw problems in their way. You just make trouble for them. A writer tortures their characters by making horrible things happen, and the characters then have to fight back. And if you do that a few times, so throw a problem, fight back, throw a problem, fight back, then you've got a plot. So that's how I go about writing a story. It takes me about 6 months from start to finish. I'll have my inspiration, so I'll be gathering my photographs and thinking about what trouble I can cause for my characters. I'll do that as a sort of daydreaming exercise for about a month, and then I'll turn that into a page of paper, so just one sheet of paper. All my notes get written down, and then over the course of about 3 months, I'll turn that one page into 250 pieces of A4 paper, which is the length of a novel, and then spend about 3 months editing it. So from start to finish, it's about 6 months. So that's how I go about writing. A little bit of my history there as well. And so maybe I could take some questions from you guys, if there's anything you'd like to know.
Okay. Who would like to, you have a question there? Okay, please come closer. Could you come closer? Okay.
Do you use real facts based on true stories?
Do I use facts based on true stories?
Yeah.
Okay. Sort of, yes. I don't, not the crimes, because I write crime fiction. So the crimes that I write are all made up, but the details about my characters' lives are often based on real things that I've seen or heard. The struggle in this story is that Piot's dad gets accused of a crime, and because they're Polish, they're from Poland, Piot's dad wants to take them back to Poland because he's been accused of this crime in the United Kingdom. But Piot doesn't want to go because he lives in the United Kingdom. And that struggle between a parent wanting one thing and a child wanting another is actually based on a friend of mine who has been living in the United Kingdom for 10 years. And his child is British, but he feels still very Polish. So that tension is based on a real person, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's your question, yeah.
Hi. So I'm writing fantasy kind of stories, and I was trying to write some novels because I want to be an author when I grow older. Some people don't count fantasy as literature. What do you think about that?
Some people don't count fantasy as literature.
Yes.
I would ask them to take a look at the Iliad or the Odyssey or Beowulf. I think that there are European literature is founded on fantastical stories and fantastical creatures of all kinds. So it's absolutely the cornerstone of our literature. So good luck with it. I think I don't write fantasy myself, but that's because my interests are with very contemporary societies. I like dramas about families and friendship and contemporary life. But I read a lot of fantasy, and anyone who thinks it has nothing to offer has limited imagination, I think. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi. Do you also use some photographs you took in real life in your novels?
Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear the question. It
Do
squeaked.
you also use some photographs you took before in your novels?
Some photographs in my novels?
Like.
No. Do you use some photographs you take before in your novels? Some
photographs that I've taken?
Yes.
Yes. When I'm researching, so for example, this book, which is The Mystery of Wickworth Manor, is based on a portrait that I saw when I was a child, but it's set in 18th century England, and in our city, in Bristol, there's a museum where a house has been preserved as if it's the 18th century. So I went there and I took lots of photographs in my research. So I'm always collecting things for referencing later. That's a really important part of writing, actually, is being able to recall things that you've seen and describe them in a way that's interesting. And it's easier to do that if you've got a physical record of it in front of you. So a collection of photographs of objects and people and places means that you can reference things quickly. You can look at them and think, well, what did that look like? What did it feel like? And it's a way of just jogging your brain into thinking of an interesting way to say something. So it's very useful.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
If you had one wish, what would it be?
If I had one wish.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like a Miss World question. I should probably say world peace. That's what they say. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. More sleep last night. That would have been good. No, I think that For myself, I'm very content with the life that I have right now. Being a writer is my full-time job. Every day I get up and I have projects to work on that I'm really excited by, and I'm able to make a living producing art, which is so rare. It's such an amazing thing to do that actually I couldn't wish for anything else. It would be greedy of me to. So I wish happiness to everyone else, but I'm very happy at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah. You have another question?
I'm asking again. Sorry
It's
for
okay.
frustrating, but are you only writing drama or something like that?
Do you write drama books?
Do you write drama books only?
Grammar books? Drama. Sorry. Yes, I do. I do mostly write drama. I think that's a really important thing to do if you want to write or if you want to make anything. The best way to do it, the best way to turn it into a career, is to follow your passion, to write the things that you're passionate about, or to paint or draw or make music about the things that you are completely consumed by, you're interested in, because that way your passion comes across to the people reading your books. And so I'm really interested in what makes families work, especially. I'm really interested in, I told you earlier that my mum and dad had divorced. So I'm always interested in stories about step parents and step brothers and sisters and half brothers and sisters, because that's what my family experience has been. So I always write the sorts of stories that I want to read, and that's absolutely the best thing that you can do if you want to make art. Make the sort of art that you wish that you could see or could own, because then you'll be passionate about it and people will be interested in that passion.
Okay, I have one last question. How many books did you write? And yeah.
How many books have I written? Well, I have published 6 novels. But the first book I wrote, you can't buy in the shops because it was never published. It was rubbish. It was about a child who had a really unhappy life, and he finds a time machine in his garage, and he decided to go back in time to stop his mum and dad from ever meeting, so that he's never born. So he kind of commits suicide by time machine. And I thought that was a really funny idea, but everybody who read it thought it was really depressing and really miserable. So I never published that book.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine for the first time you try something to expect to fail at it, really, because if you've never done it before, you need to practice to get any good. So my first novel is just, something that I did to learn how to do it. And it's absolutely fine that it was never published. So 6 books published, but I've written 7.
I
Thank
think
you.
that isn't a bad idea.
Hi, I have just one question. Did you ever think you'd ever become an author?
Well, I was always a writer, because ever since primary school, I did it for fun. But I never thought that I would be an author, because I didn't really know that it was possible to be one. When I was growing up, I grew up in a town in a country called Wales, which is very small, very rural. There's lots of sheep, lots of mountains, and I didn't know any writers. I didn't know any authors. And in my mind, I think when I was a child, I didn't really know how books were made. They just were, they just were. And so it wasn't a dream of mine, because I didn't know it could be a dream. And it took until I was in my 20s for me to realise that all an author does, is write a book that's interesting enough that other people will give you money for it. That's it. That's the qualification that you need. You need to write something good enough for people to give you money for it. And once I realised that, then I was away. I was ready to be a writer.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have one, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
What advice would you give to people who run out of creativity?
Wow. Well, I think that we all have a well of creativity inside us, and sometimes you feel really full, and you feel that you can you can make things, and you're really excited about drawing or painting or knitting or whatever it is that you do, and you feel really excited by it. But at other times, our well feels empty, and it feels as if we've got nothing to give. And at that point, I think that trying to force yourself to make will just make you feel as though you're not very good. You know, it's a bit depressing when that happens. But for me, I think the important thing is to work on making sure that you keep your well topped up. And I do that by looking at other people's art. So whenever I finish a novel, I take 4 weeks off work and I don't write for 4 weeks. And in that 4 weeks, I will try to watch plays, I will go to exhibitions, I will read other people's poetry and stories and novels. And I just spend my time filling up again, filling up with energy and filling up with ideas. And I don't worry. I mean, I think the worst thing that you can do is worry that you're not going to, you know, that the last thing that you made was the best thing that you're ever going to do, and feel miserable because of that. But actually just experiencing other people's art and letting other people around you inspire you is a really good way to keep your creativity topped up. That's what I found. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Hi. Life is like a mountain, you know. There are a lot of obstacles in our life. So how would you stay strong?
How do you stay strong through obstacles? Well, when you write, you put your books out into the world and you stop having control over them as soon as that happens. And some people will really love what you do, and then people will go on Amazon and put 1-star reviews about your books, and they don't know that you will see their reviews. And so quite often you get to hear things about yourself and about your work that can really make you plummet, can really make you feel depressed. And other people's judgment, other people looking at you, is one of the things that can make you feel really crushed. And so anything that makes you feel strong in yourself and to stop worrying about what other people think is really crucial. So I always try to do the very best work that I can. If I feel that I've worked hard on, tried my best, and other people don't like it, then I can separate it out and think, well, they might not like it, but I did the very best work that I also love my family. They cheer me up always whenever anything is down. I've got my dog. You want to see my dog? She's down on the floor. Biff, can you see? Where is she? There she is.
She's good.
Hello. Oh, sorry. So I have my dog who cheers me up. So whenever I feel miserable, she comes to see what's wrong. And taking her out, getting lots of exercise, eating well, sleeping well, all those things can just make you feel as if you're living the best life that you can, leading a good life, so that things thrown at you by other people don't hurt so much. That's why. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have we got more?
Yeah. You have yeah, please.
Maybe one last one?
Yeah, one last question. Okay.
Hi. What do you do when you lose your ambition? Like, do you ever lose your ambition, and what shall we do when we lose our ambition to write?
That's not happened to me so far. Books always have a ups and downs. So sometimes I'm really excited about a book. Usually just before I start, I think, oh, this book's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best thing ever. And in my head, I think I'm going to be writing the best thing ever. And then quite often, maybe 3 months in, it starts to go down and I think, oh, this is the worst thing anyone's ever written. But recognizing those patterns in yourself really matters. So for my first 3 books, I didn't notice that I was doing it. And I said with my 3rd book, I said to my husband, it's awful. This is the worst thing anyone's done. It's not working. It's rubbish. And he said to me, are you about 40,000 words in? And I said, yes. And he said, last time you were 40,000 words in, you said it was the worst thing anyone had ever written. And the time before that, when you were 40,000 words in, you said it was the worst thing that anyone had ever written. So now I've learnt what my patterns look like. Then I can anticipate how I'm going to be feeling and know that it's not necessarily, it's real, but it's not the way I'm always going to feel. So knowing how you work and knowing the best way to manage your emotions, I think, is really important. But you can only do that with practice. You can only do that once you've written a few things, and then you can see what your patterns of working are like, and then counterbalance that. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, it's been lovely talking to you this morning. I hope that you are all encouraged and that you all want to make some art or whatever it is that you make. And I wish you all the very best. And thank you so much for coming to Bristol to visit me.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. So it's been an amazing conference. And I think that we've learned a great deal of things. And we're very grateful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.